Hi, I'm Adam,
And I'm Shawn.
and this is Stone Soup Recovery Podcast. Thanks for listening. Yeah, my name is Adam, and I'm an alcoholic. And I knew I was an alcoholic when I couldn't set it down in my early 30s. I started drinking around 12 or 13.
Wow, that was really young.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time that you drank?
Yeah, I do. It was actually from my dad. It was a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
You know, that's funny you mentioned that because when I was little, my dad would give me sips of his beer too.
Yeah.
And I kind of forgot about that till just
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, the old Pabst Blue Ribbon with the pull-off tab.
Yeah.
And that I remember that. And I remember I liked it. And then when I got older, a little older, I always looked older than what I was. So I could actually, at 16, walk in and buy beer. Um, and so that caused me a lot of problems because I had an endless supply of beer.
Mm-hmm.
But I was young and I didn't know. I didn't know any better.
The rules were so loose back then too. Like you could send your kids to the store and get you cigarettes, or you
You
could get,
could.
beer, whatever you needed when we were little. It wasn't like it is today.
No, you totally could. And for me, drinking became a way to deal with the world around me. But I didn't know it at the time. I just thought I was partying and having a good time. It wasn't until later when I looked back at things. You know, it wasn't until I quit drinking probably from the age of 21 to 29.
Wow, 10 years
Yeah.
almost.
Well, I was in prison for 7 years. Um,
Well, that put a damper on things.
yeah. And that's a whole nother story that we'll share in a podcast in the future. I altogether have done 15 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. Um, and every time I got arrested, I was drunk. Uh, every time.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol has caused problems with my family. I have family members that still won't talk to me to this day. It's caused me problems with work. I wouldn't work. I just drink. That's what I knew. And so anyway, it was later in life when I started really drinking in my late 20s. My daughter was born, and she was the light of my life,
Mm-hmm.
truly. But I drank, and I drank excessively. At first, it started out as maybe once a month, once every other month, and then from there, it went to every weekend.
Yeah, it slowly creeps up on you, doesn't it?
It does. And then from the weekend, I'm drinking on a Tuesday, and I'm drinking on a Wednesday, and pretty soon I'm drunk every day.
Yeah.
And before long, I'm drinking at 9 a.m., and I don't see a pattern and I don't see a problem. There's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the way that I lived. Um, and it made me a poor father too. I was absent. I was an absent. Even though I was present, I was absent.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Um, but drinking has always been an easy way for me. It truly is.
Yeah, but in the long run, it really is the hard way.
It's the hard way. But it's been easy for me to always, when I was younger, I could drink a lot. And
Like, how much is a lot?
like a fifth of vodka.
Wow, in a day?
Oh, easy,
Mm-hmm.
easy. And not to mention probably a 12 pack on top of that.
Wow.
I was hardcore for a while. I went from drinking beer to, a quote unquote friend at the time introduced me to vodka. And I'm like, And the funny thing is I started out on top with Grey Goose,
Hmm.
buying Grey Goose. I'd go in and I'd pick up a bottle of Grey Goose. Within a year, I was going in and buying bottom shelf Crown Roost rot gut. Give it to me for $4.
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, and that was my life for a while, and that's what I did.
That's kind of how I was too. I like the Grey Goose as well, and the tequilas and things like that. The hard liquor was always top shelf for me. I go into a restaurant and sit at the bar and order off
Yeah,
the top shelf, and I drink a couple of them and be pretty intoxicated.
yeah,
So.
yeah. See, it was easy. I dumped vodka down my neck by the gallon,
Hmm.
but I didn't see the chaos that it was causing in my life. I couldn't see it. I was blind to it. It's like I had blinders on, and
Maybe you didn't want to see it.
maybe. But I hurt people around me. My drinking hurt people, and I didn't understand that at the time.
No, you're too busy protecting your alcoholism.
Exactly. Over time in that distance, when I started from beer and slowly every other weekend, and then it progressed. The more it progressed, the more possessive of my drinking I became. And if someone was in my life that didn't want me to drink or was intolerant of my drinking, well, then I got rid of them.
Hmm.
You know, um,
Those are
it,
probably the people that you needed in your life at that time.
they were, and the problem with that is you do it enough, you end up alone, and that's what happened to me. I finally got what I wanted, and it wasn't what the hell I wanted. I didn't want to be alone. I,
Alcohol isolates you, though.
yes, it does. It
So
separates you.
yeah, it did its job.
And that's how it did for me.
Hmm.
It divided me from my family and my friends. And eventually it divided me from myself. Because I went down a long, hard road. And I ended up back in prison. Um, I ended up homeless for a while. And these are the consequences that are just that I can see on the top, looking back. And if you look beneath the surface of all that, there's more consequences, secondary consequences, the consequences to my daughter and to people, friends in my life that I took advantage of, and things like that in order to get my way.
Hmm.
You know, in the big book, it talks about selfishness and how that's our number one problem, and I didn't realize that, but it really took root later on.
Hmm.
Because as my drinking progressed, I became a bum, literally. You know,
Hmm.
gutter bum. Ex-con. Nobody wanted nothing to do with me. There's no value here,
Hmm.
and and I didn't see the value in myself, and I felt worthless. And so, in order to not feel worthless, I drank,
Hmm.
and drinking was the whole cause. It was the roundabout. Drinking was the problem, but I ran back to it to cover it up, and I learned that you can't fix real world problems with alcoholic thinking, because alcoholic thinking will mislead you every time, and that's what it did to me for a long time. I believed what alcohol told me.
Right.
As funny as that sounds, I became a very good liar. I would lie to myself and believe it. Everything's okay. Go ahead and drink. Go ahead and go to the store. We'll get a bottle. And I would lie to myself in order to make myself feel safe,
Hmm.
and I believed it. You know, but I wasn't. I was drunk all the time.
So how many years of this?
On and off, probably close to 20 years.
Yeah.
And I say off because of the time that I was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
But hadn't I been incarcerated, I'd have been drinking.
Right.
You know,
Probably the first thing you did when you got out, too, huh?
one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the first things.
That and a McDonald's.
Yeah, yeah,
At the
good old Mickey
closest
D's.
McDonald's.
But yeah, you know, as I went along, my drinking progressed. Here I am, in and out of prison, back again for violations, and I ended up in this little crappy motel in Oscoda, Michigan, and I met a pastor there that changed everything. And here I am drinking every day, and there's this pastor that's going around. His name's Pastor Steve, and he would come and visit the people at the motel. And he came around shaking hands, and he'd shake my hand, and how you doing? And here I am, you know, dirty, half drunk. I haven't bathed in days, barely eaten. And here's this preacher that keeps smiling at me and shaking my damn hand every day almost. And so after a while, he come around, and one day I asked him, is it pastor or pester? And he just laughed, and he brought me cheeseburgers. And nobody had brought me anything in a very long time. And because of my drinking, I couldn't eat very well. I couldn't keep things down very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember telling him that I was going to eat them later, and so I set them to the side, and that's what I did. So anyway,
Well, did you eat the burgers later?
I did eat the burgers later, but yeah, there's a story behind that too. I did eat the burgers later, but because I felt so miserable, my body from the alcohol, it rejected the burgers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say so. But at any rate, Pastor Steve introduced me to a guy named Zach, who's been in recovery for about 2 years. And the thing about the pastor is he doesn't know anything about alcoholism, but he could look at me and see that I was broken. And he could look at me and see that I was hurting, because he came around all the time. And then one day he sat down with me, and I just looked at him, and I was so tired of drinking. I was so beat up and mangled at this point. I looked at him, I said, Pastor, is there anything you can do to help me to stop drinking? I don't want to drink. And I just sobbed. And like I said, this man, he knows nothing about alcoholism, but he knows brokenness when he sees it. And so he introduced me to Zach, and it changed my life. Me going there and meeting him, the pastor, and Zach changed my life. Zach got me into rehab, and I went to rehab and did well for a while. And then my first year, I had a relapse. Lasted about 4 months. It was a bender. It was funny because I'd be on my relapse. I think about that. Because that's part of this journey. And so I would call people and talk to them when I was drunk and pretend like I wasn't drunk, but they knew. That's the thing, everybody knew.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I had a chance and an opportunity to go back to rehab the second time. And when I did, I left a lot of old baggage there, so to speak, and it was good for me. It was really good. And the problem came in when I failed myself in the whole situation. Um, Sober, looking back, when I was sober, I told myself, that'll never happen. That's not a chance of that. Well, baloney. You can relapse, and it does happen. And I failed myself in that regard. So I've learned a lot through it.
Yeah, you've made amends with yourself, though.
Yeah, I have. I had to forgive myself,
Yeah.
and move forward. I had to.
Yeah. So was the rehab the same place you went the first time, or did you pick up some new stuff there?
No, it was the same rehab that I went to. But the thing is that the second time around, I had the same counselor and stuff like that. I was just able to see it for what it is, and I needed separation from the drink. I knew what I had to do. I had to separate myself, and that's what I did. And then I got baptized afterwards, not long afterwards, and I went to a stay in a recovery house, and that helps. It's a wonderful place. And when I got baptized, though, see, I've never been a man of pure faith. Not truly. Often my scientific brain gets in the way, and I get analytical, and then doubt rolls in, and so I lose my faith. But I got baptized by Zach, my friend, who helped me through all of this. And when I got baptized, something in me changed. I can't explain it, but I lost that compulsion to want to drink. It's gone. And that was a driving force at one point in my life. I mean, everything was dependent upon my drinking. Everything in my life at one point. And now the compulsion is gone. The idea of it often hits me with fear. And what would happen if I drank? Because that's that alcoholic brain still working. It's still going to do its thing. And here we are, sober, a little over 2 years. And it's been a journey, and there's a lot more to go. And we're just hoping that maybe you guys will keep listening and keep tuning into our podcast. We're working on building something here.
Trying to, anyways.
Trying to.
If it just changes, if one person hears this and realizes that there's hope after alcoholism,
There is hope. I have a friend right now who's in prison, who's getting ready to see the parole board, and I'm trying so hard to get in contact with the right people for him, so he can have funding for when he gets out. And that's a big thing. We're going to be talking about that in the future a lot too. Is the situation with the recovery community, and I've got some ideas. There's a big need for people coming out of prison that need help. They need housing. They need recovery, and they're not getting it. They're just going back to the streets.
Back to their old crimes and old addictions.
Yeah, and it's no good. And so I have a friend right now who I'm trying to give hope to. You talked about hope. Well, I believe in hope. I'm a big believer of it. And I'm trying to give them some hope, and I'm trying to let them know that it's going to be okay. And so that's something that I'm working on, and I'll be reporting on that to you guys in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, well,
Well, anyway, that's my story.
that was a good story. Not really a good story, but
Well, it's a
it
true
had a
story.
happy ending at
It's got a
least.
very happy ending.
We met out of it all.
We met out of it all.
Not really through alcohol, though. We met through church.
We did.
Through a good thing, I think.
We did. And
when we were both sober and working on sobriety.
The perfect timing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here I was at one point in my life. I thought I had nothing. I'd never be nothing, and no one would ever love me. And that's because I had no self-love. And it wasn't until I found that that I was able to give it to other people. You know, so. But well, thank you for listening. And again, my name is Adam.
I'm Shawn.
And this is Stone Soup Recovery Podcast.